Awesome. Okay, now we're live on Instagram as well. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I'm Christine Daal from Fashion Angel Warrior, and we're doing Facebook and Instagram live. So I'm going to be looking back and forth between two different screens, so don't mind me. And we are shooting live from an exotic destination today. So, Monica, hey, how are you? So glad to see you on. Thanks for joining. I promised you guys that I would do these lives every Tuesday, 7 p.m. So even though I am technically on vacation, I am doing them for you because I love you guys. And it's so much fun to hear from you and see you on these calls. So thanks so much. Definitely give me thumbs up. Definitely give me some hearts, comments. I love hearing from you guys. Share this video so that everyone can see it. Tag a fashionpreneur that you know so that everyone can see it as well. And thanks so much for joining. Thanks for joining, guys. So anyone want to take a guess? I'm doing good. I'm on vacation with my hubby. We are staying with some friends, and we're having a blast. Anyone want to take a guess where we are? We're at an exotic location. It's in the Caribbean, so I'll give you a hint. It is known as the Flamingo Island. Hey, Daniela, how are you? Good to see you on. Thanks so much for joining. I will tell you guys where we are in just a minute. I'm going to wait for a couple more people to get on. I was having some connection issues. That's what happens when you're traveling outside the US. But I'm glad I'm now on Facebook Live and Instagram Live at the exact same time. And today we're going to be talking about what it takes to be a really good designer, because people ask me this all the time. And it's a really good question, and I think it deserves a good answer. So we're going to answer that today. So if you have any questions, post them at the bottom below. Again, definitely give me some thumbs up. Definitely give me some hearts. Those are oxygen to me. I need them. I love hearing from you guys. So definitely give me all that stuff. And okay, so we're going to get started. So I'm going to reveal where we are. So we are in Bonaire. So Bonaire is an island in the Caribbean. It is right next to Aruba and Curacao, which most people know of Aruba. My husband was born on the island of Curacao and grew up in America. And so he has family in Curacao, he has family in Bonaire, and he also has family in the Netherlands because Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, the ABC Islands, are actually part of the Dutch Netherland Antilles. So there's a lot of Dutch people here. There's a lot of people of all different colors and skin tones, which is amazing, and I love it. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful island. And today we actually went to Klein Bonaire, which means Little Bonaire, which is a very tiny island about 1.5 miles off the coast of Bonaire. And it's literally uninhabited. It's amazing. We went snorkeling. It was the best snorkeling I've ever seen in my life. We saw turtles this big, like so big, and we came this close to them. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. Fish of every single color, coral reefs of all different kinds and shapes and sizes. It was amazing. So if you guys are looking to plan a vacation, I highly recommend Curacao or Bonaire. They are amazing islands in the Caribbean that you can go and see, and they're gorgeous and they're beautiful. So anyway, let's get to our Facebook Live, Instagram Live topic of the week, which is, what does it take to be a good designer? And I get this question all the time, so I wanted to make sure to address it with you guys. And again, if you can share this video, that would be great. I'd love to get this video out to as many people as possible. And if you do share it, type in share it in the comments below so I can actually send you my notes from today, so you actually have all these things and you can study them, you can look them over, and all that great stuff. All right, so contrary to popular belief, most people think that to be a good fashion designer, you need to be good at sketching and sewing. And actually, sketching and sewing are not absolutely necessary to be super, super good at, right? So these are not actually on my list that I'm going to go over with you today, but I wanted to talk about it briefly because I think there's this huge misconception that you do need to be great at sketching and sewing. Now, I became a head designer by the time I was 24. I was a head designer for multiple companies. I worked my way up to VP of design and merchandising, and I don't consider myself very good at sketching or sewing. Yes, I can sketch something to the point where someone can understand it, and that's what I mean by you don't need to be really great at sketching. Like, a really great artistic, illustrative type of sketch, but you need to be good enough to be able to put your ideas down on paper and explain them to someone else, because most likely someone else is going to be sewing your line or manufacturing your line for you. You're not going to be the one doing it. And so you can use your sketches in order to convey that message to them. Now, you don't have to always use sketches. You can purchase garments and use things like that. You can take photographs of seam finishes and treatments and different things like that that will help to be able to explain your ideas to someone else. And the same goes for sewing, right? I don't consider myself a great master sewer or seamstress. Yes, can I make a pair of pants or a shirt if I had to? Sure. But at the end of the day, as a designer, you're probably not going to be the one sewing, and you really shouldn't be the one sewing, because that has to be left up to someone else so that you can focus on the things that you need to focus on the creativity and focus on the design and all sorts of things. So for instance, when I was a head designer, I only needed to understand how to construct a garment, not actually be able to construct the garment myself. So for instance, if I was making a really high-end chiffon gown, I knew that I needed a French seam, because a French seam is more expensive, it's a little bit harder to do, and it's what's mostly put into high-end garments. And so all I had to do was tell the seamstress, put French seams on the sides, in the center back, on the shoulders, wherever there needed to be a French seam. And then she would be the one to sew it. If I had to sew the French seam, it would look horrible. It would be all wavy probably and not the greatest, but I understand what a French seam is and how it's constructed. I understand that a French seam takes double the amount of seam allowance that you normally need for a normal seam. And so of course the pattern maker, when she's making the pattern for this, needs to build that into her paper pattern. So if I look at her paper pattern and see that her seam allowance is too small, I'll say, hey, I asked for a French seam here, you need to make your seam allowance bigger. So certain things like that. You need to have a basic understanding of how to sew and how to sketch, but you don't need to be super good at sketching and sewing. So I want to take care of that right away. So number one, the first thing that it takes to be a really good designer is to be creative. So what do I mean by that? So in my opinion, being creative means being able to take something from nothing and turn it into something else that is a piece of art, for instance. So taking, let's say, a seashell that you see on the beach and understanding how to make a picture frame out of seashells, right? So you're taking something from nothing, or something that's originally used for one type of purpose, and you're turning it in, you're transforming it into something else. Oh, great. I'm glad you guys like this definition. So you're turning it into something else. That's what being creative is. It's taking something that's two-dimensional. As a fashion designer, you're taking a sketch, you're taking a paper pattern, something that is two-dimensional, and you're turning it into something that's three-dimensional. When you're looking at fabrics as a fashion designer, you need to be able to understand in your brain and your mind what that's going to look like as a garment. How is that fabric going to drape? If it's a really stiff fabric, what type of garment are you going to make that's going to suit that fabric the best? And that's what's going to make you a really, really good designer. So number one, being creative. Number two, you need to have an eye to look at something and see how to make it better. So when I was younger, when I was like 16, 17, 18, I hated shopping. And honestly, I still hate shopping now. But I hated shopping because every time I would go into a store, I would look at something and say, well, I really like that, but I wish the sleeve was longer, or I wish the neckline was shorter, or I wish it was more open, or I wish they put this thing here instead of here, or the buttons are too low. I would always find something wrong with every garment that I looked at, and it was so frustrating. And so I knew at that very moment that I was meant to be a designer, because I could look at something and see how it could be better or how it could be fixed. Now, some people, when they go into a store, they see a garment, like a t-shirt or a shirt, for instance, and they automatically think in their brain, what is that going to look good with? Oh, that shirt would look great with this skirt that I have, or that would look great with a striped skirt that I need to go out and buy, or that outfit there looks great, and these shoes that I have at home would look perfect with that. That's more of a stylist mentality. When you're taking something that's already there and you're just styling it, you're just putting them together. You're not actually creating something new or changing something. You're literally taking two garments and saying, oh, this and this would look great together. Let's put them together. That's more of a stylist. And a lot of people get confused with the styling and designer and all these different types of fashion jobs that are out there. And it's fine to be a stylist, but understand that usually if you're good at styling, you're not always good at being a designer. And usually they're not together, or they don't overlap very much. And so I've worked with a lot of stylists that, let's say, wanted to start their own fashion line, and it's tricky because they can't see something from nothing. They can't look at a fabric and see how it's going to look in a skirt. They have to look at a final garment, and then they can say, oh, that skirt will go great with this top, or that dress would look great with these shoes. That's how their brain functions. So if that's how your brain functions, maybe you would just be better as a stylist, and that's good to know up front ahead of time so that you don't go down the wrong path. Okay, number 3. You have to have an eye for fit. So how a garment should fit on the body, whether it's a woman, a man, a child, whoever you're designing for, you have to have that eye for fit. You have to be able to see if something is even a quarter of an inch off. I used to do tons of fittings every single day, and I would be able to look at a garment and say, oh, this strap is a quarter inch lower than this strap on this side. And that's really, really important to have that skill, and that's going to make you a great designer. So I was fortunate enough to grow up with a father who was great at carpentry and woodwork, and so he taught me from a very young age to measure and how to add measurements and just line things up and make sure things are even and balanced and all that sort of thing. And so that was really important to me, and I took that with me into my design career. And so we have a saying in our household, measure twice and cut once, and that applies also to fashion design. Once you cut your fabric, that's it, it's over. So you better measure twice and cut once to make sure that you don't ruin any of your fabric and that you're cutting exactly what you need to be cutting. And so that applies for fashion design as well. So number 4, you have to have a talent for color and style. And I say talent because I think that these two things are really difficult to learn. I think it's something that really has to be born within you. It has to be innately put inside of you. God has to create you to have these things like talent, color, and style already within you. And it's really important as a designer that you have this. Now, I work with a ton of different designers that I coach all the time, and I see them design things that honestly have no style, or the colors just do not go well together. And you have to have that eye. You have to be able to say, this color is a little too red, or it's a little too blue, or the yellow needs to be reduced by 10%. Even if you have a job in the fashion industry, as a head designer, you're going to be approving lab dips for production all the time. And they're going to need comments. You can't just say, oh, I don't like this red. You have to give them comments so that they can actually fix it. So your comments might be to add 10% yellow, reduce 30% blue, make 10% darker. These types of things you have to have an eye for. You have to have an eye to see how the color needs to be tweaked just a little bit to make it the color that you're looking for, to make it the color that's going to match everything else that you're designing for. You know, why do certain colors look good together? Why does orange and blue work well together? You know, why do the colors in this dress that I'm wearing work well together? And there's a reason for that. And so having that sense of style and color is really important. You can get better at it over time, but again, I do think it's something that you can't really learn, and it has to be kind of innately born within you. Okay, are you guys liking this list? We have 12 different ways. We're on number 5. Give me a thumbs up. Give me some hearts. I love it. I love hearing from you guys. It's so awesome. Okay, great. So number 5 is stamina and determination. And this is a big one because working in the industry, whether you're working for another company or you're working for yourself, you will be working very long hours. I'm talking 16 hours a day. Thanks for the thumbs up. 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. It never ends. Thanks for all the hearts, guys. I love you guys. You're going to be working really long hours, so just get used to it now. Hey, Melissa, how are you? Good to see you. Get used to it now because it's going to take a lot of stamina and determination. And then things are going to come up that are very frustrating. You know, your factory's not going to make something the way you wanted it. Your fabric's not going to be available. Things aren't going to ship on time. You know, things are going to constantly come up. So it's really important that you have kind of this stamina and this determination to just keep going. Hey, Manuela, how are you? Nice to see you. I'm so glad we have people from all over the world joining us. It's so awesome that we have this ability. Okay, so stamina and determination are really important. Okay, so number 6, problem solving. So I used to go around, people would ask me all the time, what's your job as a head designer? And I would always say, I'm a firefighter. Because all I do all day long is put out fires, meaning all I do all day long is problem solve. Literally, my job was to problem solve. My job was to go around and make sure that everything was going according to plan, according to the way that it needed to happen. And so when a fabric didn't come in on time, or we couldn't get the fabric we wanted, or something came up and it needed to be solved immediately. And that's really, really important. So just get used to the fact that you're going to be problem solving all the time. And to be good at problem solving, you need to think outside the box. You need to be creative. I remember one time, I'll tell you guys a story. So one time I wanted this soutache mesh fabric that our factory had made for us, and I wanted it made in like a blush color. And the factory said to me, oh, it's going to take 3 weeks. And I knew we had a buyer coming in, and she specifically requested the blush color, and I knew I needed to have this dress made up in time before the buyer came. So 3 weeks, I couldn't wait. I didn't have 3 weeks to wait. So I had to think of something else. And no fabric vendor had it in the US where I could get it from. I had already checked all of them. I called over 20 fabric vendors, looked at all of their soutache fabrics. No one had this blush color soutache. So literally what I decided to do was take home 4 yards of white soutache and dye it in my kitchen sink over the weekend, just so I could have it done and dry by Monday so we could cut the dress and sew it by the time the buyer was going to come in. And I'm not tooting my own horn here. I'm just giving you guys an example of how to think outside the box. Nobody told me, hey, why don't you take the fabric home and dye it? This is something I thought of myself. I knew a buyer needed to see this, and I knew it had to get done in time before she came, and this was the only option I could think of. So I literally took it home. In order to get the exact color that I wanted, I used tea bags. So I literally used tea bags to dye the fabric. And I let it sit in my sink for a couple hours, dried it for a couple hours, and it was ready to go by Monday morning. So that's the type of thing you need to think outside the box. You need to think, how can I accomplish the same thing or something similar to what I'm trying to accomplish in a different way, in a new way? And that's what's going to make you a really good designer. Okay, number 7, and I hope you're paying attention because this is a big one. So the ability to focus on one idea or concept. So ideas are a dime a dozen. Most creative people have so many ideas. They have thousands of ideas. The problem is they can never focus on one and bring it to completion. So please, 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 whatever you do, make sure you pick one idea and see it all the way through. I see so many designers, I have so many clients come to me and they have all these ideas, and I tell them, okay, pick one and go with it. And then the next time I meet with them, they have 5 more ideas and they never finish the one they told me they were going to finish in the first place. So please make sure you're picking one idea and you're seeing it all the way through to completion. Otherwise, you're going to have a ton of ideas and nothing's ever going to get finished. So that's really, really important as a fashion designer. Okay, number 8, multitasking. This one is huge. And I know as women, most of us are great at multitasking, which is good, but you need to be super good. You need to be a super woman as a fashion designer to multitask because you've got a million things going on at once. Most fashion designers are working on anywhere from 2 to 5 seasons at once. So you might be working on your spring line, approving your fall production strike-offs, sourcing fabrics for your spring 2 line, spring summer line. You might be doing trend forecasting for the trans line that's coming up. You have so many things going on at once, and you need to be able to juggle everything in your head. And you need to be on time and stick to a calendar. That's really, really important. So staying organized, multitasking, being able to do multiple things at once is very, very important as a fashion designer. Okay, number 9 is being able to work well with others, because obviously as you're doing all of these things, you're going to be working with a ton of different people. You have fabric vendors, you have your factory, you have pattern makers, sample makers, cutters, your production coordinator, you've got your salespeople, production assistants, tech designers. There are so many different jobs and functions that are people that you're going to interact with on a day-to-day basis. So if you're an introverted person, being a fashion designer might not be the best job for you because you literally have to talk to so many people on any given day. that it's going to be really important that you're good at working well with others. And not only that, but you're treating others really nice. I made it a point to always treat everyone with respect. I think it's really, really important. Hi, Tina. Thanks for joining. Hi, Jessica. Thanks for joining, too. I see you over there on Instagram. So it's really important that you treat everyone with respect. I treated the cleaning lady as if she was the CEO of the company, and that's my mentality. When I worked at a job, that's my MO. That's how I walked in every single day. I said hello to everyone. I said good morning to everyone. I had a smile on my face the whole time, and that will take you very far in this industry because people are not smiling, and people don't say hello, and they're very mean to you. And so being nice and treating people with respect and really working well with others is going to be definitely to your advantage as a designer. So that's definitely good for number 9. Number 10 is to be able to separate your own personal style from the style of the line you're designing. Now, I know what you're probably saying. Well, I'm designing a line for me. I'm my perfect target customer, and I'm designing my own line, and I am the customer. And that might be true, and that might be how you start out your fashion line, especially if you're not working for someone else and this is your own fashion line. But that probably won't be how the line evolves. So over time, your customer is really going to dictate what they want. And you might find that the ugliest thing you think is so ugly, your customer loves. And this is a business, and because it's a business, you better be selling and making that ugly thing that you can't stand because your customer wants it and they're willing to pay for it. And so that's really important. So you need to have that separation from your own personal style, what you like personally for yourself, and who you're designing for or what the line really is, especially if you have a job, because most likely you're going to be designing things that you hate. I remember having to design Mother of the Bride stuff, and I don't know about you guys, but I just think Mother of the Bride stuff is boring, and it's disgusting, and it's blah, and everyone has to have sleeves because they're old ladies and they don't want to show their arms, and it's just not fun. It's not fun. They don't want to wear bright colors. It's just boring, okay? There's not a lot of options out there for Mother of the Bride, and it was actually a really hard line to design, but I actually did very well with it, and if you can be able to separate what you like and what your customer likes, that's going to help you be a really good designer. Okay, number 11 kind of goes along the same lines, being able to detach from your emotions. So again, you might love something and someone else hates it. You can't take it personally. You just can't. You have to detach from your emotions. I talk to my clients all the time and teach them ways to kind of detach from your emotions and not get your emotions stand in the way, because you'll never get anything done. You'll never reach your goals. You'll never achieve your dreams if you let your emotions stand in the way. And so it's really, really important that you kind of detach from your emotions, especially if you're working with these Devil Wears Prada ladies, okay? Every boss I ever had was this crazy Devil Wears Prada, yelling, screaming. My assistants were always crying. She was telling this girl she's fat. She was yelling at me. We were all getting yelled at, and we were all actually being treated the same, just treated the same horribly, right? And so you just can't take it personally. It's not a personal thing. This is just the way that they are. It's sad, but it's true. So true, Monica. Oh my gosh, I have stories, girlfriend. We have got to talk one day. It's just crazy. And so that's part of the reason I got out of the industry and wanted to be on the other side of coaching and teaching and helping others, because I want to see people have a success. And part of having that success is being able to detach from your emotions, not get emotional, not take things personally, and be able to kind of stand up for yourself and have respect for yourself, but at the same time not let people walk all over you, right? So that's really, really important. And so number 12, the last one, is being able to design within a price point. So this is the most important one. I think that the primary reason I got so far in my design career, and I was able to be a head designer by 24 and then be VP of merchandising and design by the time I was 30, was because I understood this principle of being able to design within a price point. Now, if you're designing a high-end line, the sky is the limit. You can choose any fabric, you can choose any trims, you can have hand beading done, you can have any seam finishes that you want. It really is, the sky is the limit, and you have no limitations because you're probably charging thousands and thousands of dollars for these garments. But if you're designing a low-end line, especially if you're trying to compete with these high-end designers and try to design something that's cheap but yet looks high-end, you have your work cut out for you. This is going to be a challenge for sure. And so understanding how much fabric costs, how much your trims cost, how much labor for certain things cost. You know, do certain seam finishes cost more than others? For instance, flat lock seams on leggings, for instance, in activewear, cost 10 times more than a regular 5-thread overlock stitch. You need to know that. As a designer, if you're designing activewear, you need to know that, because you can't just be putting all these flat lock seams anywhere you want and then your garment ends up costing through the roof and no one can afford to buy it. So it's really, really important that you understand your costing, you understand the costing structure of how everything works together, what the markup is going to be, all of the different calculations, which I teach all of my clients. It's really, really important so that when you're designing within that price point, so that you don't design a dress that no one will be able to afford to buy at the end of the day, because you just wasted all your money and time designing that dress to begin with. So I always cost things out ahead of time before I even go into making a sample, because it's just so crucial. There's no sense in using something or designing something if it's not going to cost out properly. And so that's number 12. So those are my 12 ways of what it takes to be a good designer. And again, if you want this little checklist, I will email it to you. Just put shared in the comments, shared this video, put shared in the comments, and I will email you my little cheat sheet of these 12 things so you don't have to write them down. I love you guys. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below right now and I will try to answer them. I'll give you a couple minutes to post any questions. So great to see so many of you on. Thanks so much for joining. I'm trying to catch up with all the people that joined. So good to see you. Hey Jessica, how are you? Classy UBC, thank you so much for joining. So great to see you. If you are on Instagram, this video will end at the end of this presentation. So if you do want to watch it, please head on over to Facebook in the Fearless Fashionpreneur group. You'll be able to watch all of our Facebook Live videos and you can rewatch them as many times as you want, which is awesome. So, all right, guys, I'm going to get back to my wonderful vacation in Bonaire. And we're gonna say buonanotte because that's how you say good evening or good night in Papiamento, which is the native language of Bonaire. And I will see you guys on Facebook Live and Instagram Live. Next Tuesday, 7 p.m., we have a special guest. We're gonna be doing a live interview with Laura Dotola. She is the CEO and founder of Clutch Made, which is a handbag factory in New York City. So definitely if you wanna take advantage of that, and tune in next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Glad you had fun on the call. So good seeing so many of you. Take care. Don't forget to share this video, and I'll send you my cheat sheet via email. Okay, guys. Buonanotte. Aio.